Gosh, I'm still getting, a delay in this, sorry. So sorry, I was trying to learn how to edit and crop off the beginning where you just see the camera on my videos, and I cropped off the video and left what that was on the first video. So that was late last night. So I looked at it today, and so sorry, I had to re-upload the first game playing because they say I can get that back, but I can't find it. I mean, I've done the video editing on my, in Word on my laptop. But it's a learning experience. Oh, and I also posted another video on Cuomo's playlist because it does have applicability here. It was this, it's called the Winters Group, and it popped up. It was one of these, free webinar Zoom group things. I had done one with Peace Alliance. All of these organizations, it's like it's no different than hanging out at the country club. Or, they're trying to be professional instead of hanging out at the country club and gossiping about, recipes or who's sleeping with who, or where to get your nails done. Their subject matter has changed a little bit, but either they're so misinformed on issues, and they're not there to inform themselves on issues. This was called, it was basically a Black supremacist. It was called Reimagine, or Reimagining. And as I say, it was Black supremacist group. Now, what precipitated and why they're in my email box and why I, been getting their newsletters is they were the ones who organized the Respectful Workplace workshop in the IMF's Institute for Capacity Development. There was one in 13 and another in 15. I can't remember, went over this. But I was just like, because after that workshop, I was like, excuse me, particularly the second one, I was like, these little ladies, this thing is just promoting bullying. In fact, one of the things that I was just like, oh God, was when I had done the report, Respectful, Workplace Bullying in the IMF, and preparing that in 2015, the end of 2015, because I knew, I was going to be ousted. I knew what Adrian Thapper was up to. So I had started preparing already my attack. Not just a defense, an attack. And the stuff about the Winters Group is in that report. And so I had asked Jocelyn Vonderhagen, because she was working me, as was Carly Gulati, to stand up to Adrian and get rid of Adrian. And that's still my intention, because the woman is a terrorist, as is Gina Pioni, as is Sharmini Curry, all of the HR. The place is just infected with a bunch of game playing little viperous bitches. And I am sure that's what's going on with the Cuomo. I should get his book tomorrow, which is about, you know, the COVID, his time during the COVID pandemic. So maybe I'll learn more, but about these little ladies. But you know, just a viperous little bunch of backstabbing bitches. And it's no different than the ones who hang out at the country club. Moving these ones into the workplace and positions of power, they still don't understand anything. And not because women are born, females are born stupider than males. The hormones, yeah, women are from Venus, men are from Mars. Sorry. And it has a lot to do with your hormones. And then there's also the socialization. But you can socialize girls and boys to be girls and boys and later men and women, because that is their primary, I mean, whatever they do in life professionally, whatever else they do in life, we are first off and foremost either female or male. Sex education 101 for the feminists. But you don't have to socialize girls to be brain dead bimbos. You can socialize them to fulfill their roles as mothers, as wives, and as participants in their community. You know, whether they decide to work in some workplace or work in the home, and you know, when my children got out of diapers and I wasn't spending 24/7 with all of that, and we got to Bogota and I had, you know, I had somebody clean the house, which I never, you know, took advantage of or took for granted for 1 second. You know, everybody has a legitimate job, and they deserve respect and a decent wage. I became more involved in the community. I'm not going to sit around with a country club all day long like all of these other little social climbing, you know, socialite wannabes, because that's what you are. If you really want to be a socialite, you can have it all. My goodness, it's the best place to be in a social order. I don't know why it's so denigrated, but you really want to do whatever you want to do with your life, you're in the best position of anybody. I mean, you complain about it, you know. I appreciated all of that I had in Bogota or any other time in my life, even if I did face difficulties. But I never took them for granted. Well, they're not falling out, so let's just take it first. So, oh my goodness, coming almost all the Joe Biden pack, which I forget. Let's see. Yeah, these were just numbers, so I put people on there or issues on there. So, but this winter's group, particularly Cuomo's lawyer, I hope should look at that and the workplace bullying report. It's a 150-page report. And that was because it's an example of what's going on everywhere. It's just a case study. It's repeated and repeated and repeated in workplaces all over the freaking place. So as I say, there's always method to my madness. And in preparing a defense, and I mean, if Cuomo would get out there and attack, I sent an email to this PR guy of his, get out there and social media and hand in all the evidence now. Attack dog. Sorry, don't mean to be. See, that's what a socialite does. That's the Machiavellian game playing of socialites can be used for the benefit or the detriment of society. You just have to know how to work it. Okay, so it's getting cold in here. Now it's getting hot. Probably me. One of my favorite stories was one time when it was ICD and the air conditioning wasn't working. And so it was Jocelyn, Carla, and I to go in Charmony's office to okay, well, is it cooler in here? Is it working? And I looked at the two of them and I said, what's wrong with this picture? Sending in a bunch of 50-plus-year-old ladies to find out if the air conditioning is working. I said, we don't know. We're always hot. Or up and down, up and down. See, the hormonal stuff goes throughout the lifetime for the men and the women. And it's not some big secret that we're not supposed to talk about, like where babies come from and tell them that you come in a stork. You know, the world needs to grow up a little bit. So the first one I got here is Women's Rights Org. Oh my goodness, maybe that came out with the Winters group. Okay, well, I don't want to beat dead horses because I talk about a lot about the feminists. I know I'm colonoscopizing them, but they really need it. So, oh my goodness. Wow, this is into a story of my my golfing talent or career, if you will. This one, oh, it's got a lot written on here. This is the second bio. Oh, okay, this gets into DC courts. Yeah, there's a lot of people written in here. Okay. The second pile, UN, World Bank Group, IMF, Human Rights, International Development Community, International Courts. I mean, I talked a lot about all of these different organizations, but maybe I'll just talk about how together they're working to subvert the mission of their organization and democracy. So in the third pile, okay, it's really about prep schools, which is mainly, you know, my knowledge of prep schools is Europe and well, the Americas, but European prep schools and American prep schools. And third pile, second card. Okay, this gets into my little what do you call it? Soap opera. Reality show. Everybody's into reality shows. If you look at my playlist on the Killboard House, it's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest reality show. I do not understand the American. It's not just the Americans, because believe me, everybody's embraced this. I mean, just embrace this. These reality shows out of control. I'm like, I mean, the singing one, yeah, there was some absolute spectacular singing, singers who have come out of that. And I know is actually Douglas Schar's sister's wedding, Dwight Schar's daughter, his eldest daughter's wedding that I had gone to, and a friend of hers sang. Amazing voice, amazing. And I went up to her afterwards and I said, oh my God, you should do this professionally. And she said, well, I've tried, it's not that easy. And it's given opportunity to a lot of people that wouldn't have had opportunities within that, predatory system and couch gassing system that's been out there. I mean, of course, it's not been cleaned up, it's just been deformed. But so anyway, I just, as I said, it was Jerry Springer the first time I had seen one of these reality shows, and that was in 2004, 2005, with my kids making dinner in Madrid, my house in Madrid, and I was like, whoa, oh God, because I know that, face of America, and that face of France, and that face of Spain. But believe me, this whole thing that the Europeans, I don't know who has more of a superiority attitude, the French or the British, but all the Europeans think they're superior to Americans. Now, one of the reasons is, well, also for that is because Americans are really crass and obnoxious when they're traveling abroad and throwing around their money, and it's really, quite frankly, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. So let's get started with the cards. So let's start with Women's Rights Org. I was just talking about the Winters groups. Of course, that's a for-profit. It's a business. I mean, all of them are for-profit. The NGOs are for-profit as well, because their money goes to pay the salaries of all of the PhD and MBA experts who, were able to pass a whole bunch of tests in a bunch of colleges that don't care about anything that they're churning out except cha-ching, 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 and the money. Oh, I forgot to, I've kind of pretty finished with my, here's my little pot of gold. I have a tinier one over there that I'm working on. I have glitter that I needed to, I bought for these things. Years ago, I'm trying to clean this place up and start preparing for my, oh, they're gonna come after me as soon as the evictions lift. So by the time you do this a couple of times, it becomes so old hat that you're like, okay, fine, let's. I know how long this is gonna take. I know what I now gotta do, because I know how to argue all of this stuff in court. The lawyers would just listen to me, but I don't know the procedural things. And that's, well, in Europe, you have the barristers and you have the lawyers. And in Spain, you have procuraduras y abogados. When I first got the bill for the procuradura, I was like, what the hell is this? Except another idiot in there to charge me something to screw me over. Well, the procuraduras, they're going to be held responsible for all of this as well, even though I never met them. But when at first, and this was Belén Martín, I said, what the hell is this procuradura? I just got a bill from the procuradura. And of course, the procuraduras are as much as with the abogados that I had, that, oh, this lady never pays her bills. She, she owes money all over the place. She's a con artist. She doesn't pay her bills. Of course not. You people blocked all of my money. You should have been suing the previous lawyers that I had for malpractice and damages, rather than coming up for their asses, because you just became accessory to all of the criminal activity they've been involved in, because this is criminal activity. I'll post on this a link to the table that I put together. The violations under civil codes and penal codes of my lawyers in Spain. I'm going to get into the international conventions and constitutional articles. It's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. They'll spend the rest of their lives in jail, as will everybody else. So every time the lawyer or procuradora who's charging me for doing what the hell, I don't know, of course I'm not paying. I don't care about paying you guys. It's like if you hire somebody to do some reforms on your house and your house crashes down on top of you and kills people, particularly, or maims them, nobody's going to expect you to pay that bill. You're going to be hauling their asses to court for, financial damages. And if there's any penal stuff involved, you're going to go after them on that. So, yeah, I'm sure that's their excuse. Oh, this is just a parasite bimbo, and we're going to show her and see she doesn't pay her bills. I mean, you steal my money, that's what it is, and then you complain that I won't pay you for it? I mean, these people are freaking crazy. Crazy. So, no, on that and got really pissed off about that one, but so I'll get back to the women's rights organizations. They're out of control. They're out of control, as are the feminists. And why? They got no problems launching false allegations against somebody, like in the Cuomo case or in the Prince Andrew case. No problem. And in fact, the lawyers, this is why I'm like, this sounds super scripted, the testimony of these little ladies from the feminist lawyers. I can just hear the conversation in my head of how these feminist lawyers are coaching these little girls. And I mean, some of them, not that they need any coaching. But if they're given a voice like that and a case in the courts, it's because those feminist lawyers have an agenda. I've been knocking at doors of all of these lawyers for 15 years now to be told, go away, stupid little idiot, parasitic trophy wife homemaker who doesn't understand anything about anything because you don't have a PhD or an MBA like us. And we have worked so hard to grapple up the ladder of success and be in the limelight. Nobody's going to steal our limelight. Ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. The feminists, I mean, just like the other, minority groups with the winners group, they get, 2 strikes. Not only are they, of color, Black, but also women, feminists who want power, Black power and feminist power to supreme. And as I say, all of the minorities which is mainly the Democratic Party and the conservatives, because same things going on in Europe and everywhere else. You even see that, show it in Colombia, everywhere. That's why you have more and more extremism on the right and the left. Same difference in every country. So Democrats for the United States, it's filled with the minority interests, Republicans, or the white supremacists usually. Because you do it, but most of the minorities that are Republicans, it's brown nosing, and they are, their ideology is extreme, just like the white supremacists. And why the right and left at it is extreme is no different, comes together, and that's where we are right now. So they'll band together, these minorities will band together when they're fighting the Republicans, and that's why you find this concentrated within the Democratic Party. But once they've won, and the feminists, I mean, also this gets into a battle of the feminists between the feminist of the alt-right and the feminist of the alt-left. That complicates the issue a little bit, but basically to identify some groups, the expat wives clubs, even though some of them say they're liberals, it's an alt-right extremist group. It's in the pockets of corporate America. So, that can be used as an example, the ladies there, of the alt-right extremists, women like Phyllis Schlafly. Then, of course, the other spectrum is the Eleanor Schmeals, the Anne-Marie Slaughter, Carrie Kennedy, that group of women who say they're different, but they're not. It's exactly the same. So as I say, it gets convoluted because the lines, the divisions between the different groups, it's gray, and they might be together here on one issue, but then fighting on another issue. I mean, the feminists, for example, abortion, they all want abortions. Or mastectomies, as I say, that's a very personal decision for any woman But there's a little bit too much aggressivity going on in there. I thank God not been presented with that problem. Who knows? I mean, I lost my insurance years ago. I mean, that's the reality for most Americans. You know, they're living the dream. I'm like, yeah, you guys, guess what? The dream can be taken away from you like that. I mean, if I was as naive as everyone I know, everyone's saying it, you people, I'd be dead. I'd be dead right now. Or yeah, I'd be living on a tent in the streets. But see, I grew up in the school of hard knocks. I may have had a silver spoon, but I did not have. People mistake that for believing that all of your all problems in life, you live happily ever after, and you are just happy as long as you are filled with, you know, material wealth. No, doesn't buy you happiness. I always said I've known lots and lots and lots and lots of people with lots of money, but I've never seen one of them happy because of that money or the material wealth around them. In fact, they always want more and more and more. They're never satisfied. And that is the paradigm that the feminists, women's rights boards, I mean, when I see them out there saying that they're promoting women's rights with having it all and breaking glass ceilings. Oh, yeah, break that glass ceiling over your little head, you little bitch. You're undermining the rights of women and children and everybody else in the community, the society, the country, everywhere. You're creating chaos and a total breakdown in the rule of law and the courts. I mean, the lawyers who are bringing cases to the courts to sue people or to destroy people, knowing that the victim, the accuser, is lying, is falsifying, you know, documents, you know, or other people who are coming in to commit perjury and confirm what they're saying. This is criminal stuff. But nobody seems to find anything wrong with it. Oh no, I mean, the lawyers should be explaining to these girls, we can't do that because you and I could both go to jail, instead of, oh, okay, let me coach you on how this is done. Say, women's entry into the legal community has not had a positive effect. In fact, perhaps that's where we see it the most detrimental effect that it's had. Kamala Harris, she's this giggling little idiot judge from California. Not only is she Black, she's also Indian. And I forget if I was doing the card on that, that'll come up. That gets into the life of law and Laura Nader. But so here, I know I quote this report all of the time, ad nauseum. Doesn't get into anybody's head. I mean, it is normal. I remember my mother when we were little. she would say, maybe I could just put this on a tape recorder and then play it every single time I have to say this to you guys, because it really is, and I have to admit, when I became a mother, I had the same thing. I was like, maybe I could just put this on a recorder and then I'll play it. Yeah. When you're a mother with young children, that is normal. And I got no problem telling them 1,000 times, it's cold outside, you wear a coat when it's cold outside. Or no, pick up the stuff in your room before you go outside to play. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 times with children that are growing up. I got patience, and I find that's normal. Okay? I got all the patience. But when it is grown adults who are supposed to be, who are doing good in the world, and supposed to be saving the world with their intellectual superiority over everybody else, make me want to vomit. Thank you very much, you ladies and gentlemen. Because the truth of the matter is, you got no freaking vein, and half of you don't know what you're talking about. And you paid a hell of a lot of money just to get those pieces of paper that has convinced everybody that you got something in your head and something coming out of your mouth worth saying, worth listening to. But this is the UN report, in-depth study on all forms of violence against women, which shows it is the women who are the motor behind the violence, the physical and sexual violence of the men with their norms and customs, aka Machiavellian games in a narcissistic, psychopathic paradigm, which, voila, we are living in, as bigwig expert Twang and Campbell explain at great lengths in their book, The Narcissism Epidemic. Now, the literary world and well, bookstores know we got it all online nowadays, are overflowing with books on all of this information. And everybody's obviously buying them because it's generating a lot of income for these people and making these people extremely rich. I mean, look at Obama, 30 million. The Clintons are around the same. They might be 40 million. All of that is book deals, speeches, foundations, ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. But they want to mess with me, call me a stupid bimbo, and try and cancel me, and ostracize me, and marginalize me, and destroy my children. They're betting their farms. And they got some really nice farms, some of them. I know how to get the money back from the offshore, the 32 trillion in the offshore accounts that the development community needs. I know how to get out of that money like a waterfall. You get the money back in, clean it all up, and clean up the business community. I keep on saying they built the prisons with their new Jim Crow. They built their own housing. As Lee Iacocca said, where have all the leaders gone? Kick the bums out. So the first bums that need to be kicked out of Washington are all the little lady feminist NGOs. Now, they're not alone, but of course, that's the discussion right now. So we got National Organization of Women, Feminist Majority Foundation. When I saw they had split, I was like, okay, what's going on with the inviting with these little ladies? Because I've been on the Expat Wives board membership for quite a while, and so I'm like, I don't think there's anything worse in this world than an organization made up of cackling hand women and the damage that they can do. This is why the finances will held in the purse strings of the men, because the damage they can do with no financing, no, no money whatsoever is horrific. So give them some money, and they don't have a lot. They're dirt poor, but with no funding, they're one of the cancers that's creating a shit show in this town. So then there's UN Women. Oh, they're up a creek without a paddle. World Bank Women, Business and Law. Oh, that's another one that's up a creek without a paddle. Well, there's the head of the gender, big wig gender expert is Karen Groen at the World Bank. I can't wait to see that little spastic lady on the stand. You talk about your A personality, spastic, dumb blonde. See, and she's the head honcho feminist over at the World Bank Group. I don't even know all the people that, I'm not sure. I'm more familiar with the hierarchy over at the IMF than I am at the World Bank, of course, because that's where I was. But there's the Women, Business and Law Department. All of these little ladies are betting the farm and seizure of their assets. Now, as I say, the foreigners, why should American taxpayers, pay to have them in prison? They send them back to their home country and let their people take care of them. Another one, National Partnership for Women and Families. I think I even applied for a job there years and years and years and years ago, but discrimination lawsuit under their hiring practices. Believe me, everybody keeps on saying, go out and get a job. That's going to come up. Go out and get a job. Like, excuse me. I apply to jobs that I'm so much more qualified for and competent for than any other applicant that they're ever going to receive. Yet I don't get an interview because I'm an old lady and I'm white and I'm an American. Has anybody seen why the white supremacists are getting pissed off and there's a backlash from them? My backlash, I do it through, argumentation and putting together things for the courts and do it in a legal manner rather than, okay, let's go and get them. It was, violence, because that's not going to get anywhere. And if any of them would listen to me, But all of these different groups, everybody's too busy squabbling and, trying to become the leader within their little groups, or the president of their NGO. It can take many forms, but that's the ultimate game. they're all egotistical narcissists who are within that industry. And that's why, give me more money for my NGO, give me money for my NGO, so I can have a whole bunch of people sitting around listening to me, spout off anything that I want, whether it makes sense or not. This is a cult. I mean, each of these are individual cults. That's why, drink the Kool-Aid. Oh, you've drunk the Kool-Aid, have you? You've drunk the Kool-Aid. That's why it's come into such mode. Because that's the bottom line. What you're doing there, buddy, you just drank their Kool-Aid. But what they're selling is bullshit. And we know what happened with all these people who drank the Kool-Aid in the cults. They end up going bye-bye. So, as I say, I don't want to beat a dead horse. But all of these people need to be held to account for what they're doing. And I mean, I have spent the past 13 years just meticulously documenting everything that everybody is doing. Not that somebody will put me on a freaking podium, but so that when I get to the end of the line, we have the cases for the courts. It gets done in a court of law. You clean it up, and I get my children back to me. That's all I want. I want to get my company up. I want to get my children and live in peace. Everybody here, I mean, to each his own. And that's precisely, not everybody wants to live in the spotlight. Not everybody wants to live in a high-rise luxury apartment. Not everybody wants to be, jet set around the world and be wealthy, and not everybody wants a complicated life. And those who want a complicated life, come on over and I'll complicate your life all that you want. Believe you me. You really want a complicated, chaotic life? I got your medicine for you. No problem. Come on. I'll let the rest of the world live in peace. So the second card, I forgot to look what time I guess I started. I've already gone on for quite a while. Sorry. Okay. I mean, I don't know if anybody's tired of hearing about the same things over and over again. I'm tired of talking about them. So, but there's many aspects of all of these different problems of what's going on in DC. And every urban capital everywhere. So I've already mentioned, this gets into landlord-tenant courts. That was in 2016 when it was the Fort Tottenham house. And I've already spoken about the landlord there, my roommates there, the Brays a little bit, who lived upstairs with me, who is apparently my wife. With all these little games, see, my point with the lawyers in that case, because I think it was Carol Blumenthal or Blumenthal, I'd have to look at my records. And then Kimberly Fahrenholtz, something like that was the second one. But I made it very clear to both of those lawyers, you better explain to your client that what you all are trying to do is illegal. I can come after both of you on penal stuff, as well as civil damages for the harassment and I haven't gotten started on looking at everything that I can, rack up against them on that. But the landlord and her lawyers, plus the judge, plus the people in the they had 2 legal clinics, one for the big boys and one for the little boys and girls, ones who were actual lawyers and had graduated, and the law students in training to violate the rights of clients. Oh, I can't wait to get the head of the legal clinic for the little boys and girls into court. Holy shit, that man is gonna spend the rest of his freaking life in jail. I mean, one case alone with me, and he is the director. He's ultimately responsible for all the crap that's going on in there. And these idiot kids. I mean, as I say, at least the other ones have graduated. Don't know anything more about the law than the little kids, but at least, well, not much. So, and then they turn around and say, to everybody how they're doing good in the world. I mean, you find this all over the place, these free legal clinics. You go in and you talk to the lawyer, and I'm like, oh, great, another one. It has no freaking idea about anything. I mean, it literally, the legal community has made up an entirely parallel reality. I mean, you even hear it all the time. Law schools do not train their students how to be lawyers. They learn that from the law firms that they go and work for. Because what they're doing, what the law firms are doing, what everybody is doing in the courts, as I say, it is totally removed from the legal structure that's on the books. Everybody's violating the law. The constitutional violations alone are all over the frickin' map. And then when I get into the international stuff, international conventions, I mean, incredible. So I was, these little lawyers got lengthy, both of them got lengthy letters from me. I don't think they read a frickin' word. Tough shit. Tough shit. Everybody says to me, it is what it is. This is hardball, lady, and you're just a stupid bimbo because you're not greedy and you haven't been money, but you've been about upholding the law. And what stupid idiot would ever do that? Well, that little idea there of all my foes land their asses in prison and cost them their farms. But See, this is again with the Cuomo case, the Prince Andrew case. These accusations, these false accusations, are damaging the lives and professions, as it is intended, of these people, of these men. And then it gives the reputation of all women doing that, and reinforces the bias that all women do that, so that when women go and file a complaint, no, she's just a gold digger. I mean, I keep on, even I get that from my, they don't say that, but anybody who pulls that one out with me, I'm like, okay, wait a second. Okay, but explain yourself. Look at the facts of my case. That was not the situation. So why, particularly you lawyers who are so misogynistic, you just, oh, she's just some freaking gold digger lying through her teeth, trying to get more money. And this is another thing. That's the name of the game. See, that kind of deviates right now from what I want to talk about. But common property law and separation of beings, what do you call it? I've done this all in French and Spanish, but so common property law, or when you have separate property under marriage, and it's always one or the other, it's very clear about what assets the woman is entitled to, the woman and the man. You know, anything under, I mean, that's what it is in Spain, under common property law, any money that was earned and interest earned, I'm pretty sure, during the marriage, which is a contract and a you know, legally binding contract, which comes under contract law, but none of the lawyers seem to understand that. You know, that's your property as well. I mean, you're contributing to the marriage. And this is again all the little ladies sitting at the country club being parasites off of their husbands is greatly damaging the reputation of women who don't do that, and reinforcing this misogynistic, because it is a misogynistic attitude towards women. But this is where the ruling elite, living that lifestyle and promoting that lifestyle, and this is how all women should live and aspire to, is also reinforcing that misogyny. I mean, sure, I'm like, run the bitches out of town. They don't care. I mean, these expat wives clubs, particularly, oh, little ladies, FACO, INFA, World Bank Family Network, UN LESA, all of you little ladies, it's no big deal that I haven't seen my kids in 15 years. It's no big deal that I lost, or I had to flee Spain. It's no big deal that I'm sitting here like this and waiting for them to start eviction proceedings, because all of you little ladies want jobs here in my country and want the, you know, having it all, and the $1 million homes and careers for yourselves and nannies for your children, and go and do lots and lots of shopping when you're in the land of milk and honey. Well, I'm trying to clean up this town and getting crap all over the place from everybody for it. You really think that I'm going to have any pity for those little ladies when they're sitting here like I've been living, lose everything. And if they keep their asses out of prison, they'll be destitute and impoverished and try and figure out, because holy shit, guess what? Their kids have spent a hell of a lot of money on education. Now, I mean, okay, you can declare bankruptcy. I'm all, you can't put people in prison for debts. I agree with that one. But there's going to be a day of reckoning. You guys, little ladies, want to play hardball with me and cancel me and denigrate me and bully me? I mean, the way, I don't know, well, it was keep for keeps. Little bitches in the IMFA, same with the little bitches in the Institute for Capacity Development or anywhere in the I mean, there were a few decent people that I did meet in the IMF. Very few and far between, and I remember their names, who they are, and I'll be like, wait a second, no, this is a decent person. They were doing their job. They they're not, they were secretaries. You can't hold them accountable for the policy and practices issues of the IMF. The economists, you certainly can, particularly the farther up they get. Oh yeah, they are responsible. However, at the lower level, playing these little games, grappling up the ladder of success so you can have the cushy little jobs that will reimburse you for tuition, that will, because most of them are local hires, so they don't get their housing paid for, but they can get tuition and reimbursement. Their children, get the schooling paid for. There's a lot of benefits that these people get. And all they're doing is milking taxpayers for the money and laughing all the way to the bank because they're working to subvert the mission of the organization, just like at the national levels, the people in the government agencies are working to subvert the constitutions and rule of law with all of these little games. The administrative functions are just as important as the big wigs, and both of them need to get their shit together. I mean, this is what's incredible. No, the ship has sailed and you didn't get on the ship when you were young, so you're left at the docks. And I'm like, yeah, well, I was left with the entire booty at the docks. Joke's on you, and that's the Titanic, and bye-bye. That's how you handle it. So I guess I've gone on. There's a lot of people on here, but I won't get into everybody here. But it just goes to show you the names and the names of. Oh yeah, it was because it gets into this Killam. There's another thing, Chelsea Killam, Director of Research at it's the ASAE Foundation. See, everybody in that foundation, she really screwed them over royally, because they got on my radar. How can you be employing such a bitch and parasite on society? And definitely not for the workplace, the workforce, and God forbid give her any kind of diploma, but not even a broodmare. See, that's the type of woman out there that gives the other women a bad name. Yes, she's a parasite on society, creating just, havoc and backstabbing bitch, everything. Worthless. Worthless as a mother, worthless as a wife, worthless as a worker. Yet, she's given a job as director of research. The universities are churning out idiots, absolute idiots who have bought their meal ticket, paid a lot of money, gotten into, particularly they get into the Ivy League schools. They never have to do anything to get in their lives. Just, like Ghislaine Maxwell with Prince Andrew. This is why before the royals, the royal children and amongst the, very upper class were tutored at home and didn't go to, in English it's called a public school, but it's school with other students. Then because Prince Charles, that was a big thing, that Prince Charles and Andrew and Edward, and even Princess Anne, because we had visited the boarding school that I think it's Benedictines or something. I didn't like it at all. It was like, God, no, stuffy. I mean, I really like to call them. I like to call them better than I like Fox clubs. Oh, not the weather. So let's go on to the next one, since I was just mentioning Foxcroft and it's talking about the feminist. So this gets into the prep schools. I think I've already gone into this bit, so I won't, I've gone on, oh gosh, already an hour now. But the prep schools, the questions, and this is applicable to the universities, particularly the Ivy League ones and the Ivy League wannabes. I think that's what GW is aiming to get in that category. I mean, $50,000 a year. That's the undergraduate stuff. I don't know what the graduate stuff is. $50,000 a year. And they're up shit's creek without a paddle on all of the different departments and the crap that they're pulling. People in DC, well, David, the landlord here, he laughed. He said, oh yeah, GW, they're into real estate. And I have to agree with him. And oh Lord, they have some pretty expensive real estate there. And a big chunk of it in Washington. Thank you very much. All you PhDs, all you bigwigs who only care about getting tenure and cashing in and publishing your books and getting on a podium and speaking. That's some nice property there. Not only the university, all the houses full of these guys. They want to play hardball. I'm a stupid bimbo who doesn't know anything, who's no threat to them. It's a crapshoot, sure. It's a high risk, high yield game. Everybody want to play, so we play. So my question for all of these, and a question that everybody should be asking them, these universities, and prep schools, expensive prep schools. Do you exist to serve as a vehicle for ladder grapplers and narcissists to social climb and move from the lower classes to the upper classes? Because as it's Nancy Eisenberg in White Trash, 400 years of American history or something. Oppression in American history, I forget, but it's White Trash. That the problem is not a racial problem, it's a class problem, and that the lower classes want to get into the upper classes, and it's not about race, it's about grappling up the ladder of success and becoming one of the Joneses, and that, you know, totally true. And you see that with the Obamas, you know, with the Black community that's become wealthy. Oh, their opulence and extravagance and crassness and you know, superiority is horrible, as are the yellow community, the brown community, the Indians in this country. And I've known Indians all over, but the Indians, particularly who come to the United States, it's just as bad as the crass, obnoxious Americans who go abroad. The Asians are the same. I mean, not all, but a large majority. And the Latino community, how is it that we have the war on drugs, a failed war on drugs, and which is the motor behind all of the violence south of the border? Where's the Latino community and their voice there in stopping this? Ted Cruz, for example. Well, that's another perfect example of what one would think. You know, a Cuban immigrant, his father was supposedly a Batista, a Cuban refugee, Castro, you know, had fled Cuba, you know, because of Castro. But they had come quite, you know, a number of years before the revolution to Miami, and apparently that's not true. Also, all of these, you know, the people that did flee, and in fact, there's a fund where the Cubans in Miami, they've been paying the taxes, the property taxes, at least that was the case back then, and I'm sure that's still, they've been paying the property taxes on their homes and properties in Cuba that were taken from them, so that when the regime fails, and the winds of war change, that they'll be able to go and reclaim their property and say, we've been paying taxes on this stuff for all of these years. Now, of course, you're getting into second generations on a lot of this stuff, but Havana reminded me of St. Petersburg. I mean, no, in the sense that just spectacular architecture all over the place, that thank God hadn't been, you know, because when we saw, you know, in the United States in the 60s and 70s, and all of these horrors that were, you know, built on beaches, and all of these beautiful, beautiful buildings that were taken down to put up high rises. for money. So at least that didn't happen in Havana, but everything was just in such disrepair. And the cars, there were all these cars from the 1950s. And I don't know how this thing is still going. I was like, this is kind of like a Fred Flintstone car or something. I got some stories, oh Lord, about the car there. But anyway, it's you know, so a perfect example of you know, a Cuban who's an alt-right and supposedly you know, a Castro dissenter. Well, I guess that's not too far a stretch, but you know, he fled Cuba precisely because Batista was an alt-right, you know, predatory government. And that's what Ted Cruz is promoting, and what brought in or gave rise, if you will, to a, you know, communist Castro regime, which is I keep on explaining to everybody our problems. And this is Burnham 41. As I say, these are all the experts that are saying this. It's not the dumb bimbo woman. She just read what all of the experts have said and putting it together for all of you super intelligent and intellectually superior men. So, see, women do, if you give them a brain and some morals, they do have a decent function in the society, and not just for money. So, you know, the question becomes for these prep schools that everybody should ask them, are you just a vehicle? So these narcissists will, I mean, that's a negative effect on the community. And I'd have to look at constitutions where that might come in under subverting the Constitution. But I got to be in there somewhere. Can't produce an educational institution that's going to produce you know, is designed to produce a bunch of terrorists. Don't they go after them in the East, like in Iraq and stuff like, and Afghanistan? I mean, that or even in the United States, for having these institutions, religious institutions that are teaching people violence and how to incite violence and chaos and terrorism. I mean, we got some jurisprudences there, and some and in fact, what all you little ladies and gentlemen, you know, came up with yourselves. Everybody needs to start looking in the mirror. The people, the prep schools and Ivy League colleges are turning out terrorists, extreme right or extreme left. And they don't care. They don't care as long as they can party and get laid and do their lines of cocaine or pop their pills. Same difference. Or, you know, yes, it's nice to see that Americans don't drink only jugs of Gallo wine in Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill anymore, and have developed a little bit a palate, a little bit, I say, I'm sorry, yes, okay, this is not McDonald's in these fine dining restaurants, but on a reality show, on a cooking show, let's go head to head, any of you with me, and I'll show you a home cooked meal is better than anything that you can produce. One of the things I wrote a blog about this back in 2007. I was preparing Thanksgiving dinner. I used to do a huge spread. And I even said, something that you can never have enough of in your cooking: onions and garlic and heart. Something to that effect. And the onion and the garlic are good for the heart. So, but that's the secret recipe when you're cooking. You put your heart into it. And you have somebody you're cooking for that you love. Lee Topping Brady, who is complaining about having her sons home during COVID and having to cook for them. And I'm sitting here going, I would give my right arm to have had my children with me for the past 15 years to cook for them. See, when the house of cards falls at too big to fail, all of these people, no, we're too big to fail. We're too big to fail. We're in too important to fail. I know you're not. And I got no problem that you fail and you end up with a shit show. Because that's what you're producing for everybody else with your little narcissistic Machiavellian games. And you can't say it's not true, it's not true, it's not true. Because I got the goods on all of you. All of you. You want to cancel me. You want to ignore me till I go away. You want to pretend that, you know, I and my children just don't even exist because it's convenient for you. Well, guess what? I do, and I've been sitting here watching for a long time. See, Protection Rocket Mafia, game playing, class 101, you know, you don't screw over one of your own because they got all the dirt on you. I mean, any idiot knows that. And my Lord, do I have dirt. And see, this is the problem. Everybody, you know, everybody just assumes, like my lawyers, I know, and everybody else who attacked me. And I mean, vicious stuff, and they're going to pay for it. Just assumed that, well, I would be too intimidated because when the dirt was brought out about me, then, you know, I'd be destroyed and you know, discredited, and it would be their word against mine. And since they have the money and I have none, of course, everybody's going to side with them. But I was like, but guess what, you people? Really? I mean, you know, the type of stuff that you're going to come after me with, this is like, you know, that I'm a drug addict and been in reform school and a problem child since I was 12 years old. I mean, you look at the evidence and you have to laugh. That's like, oh, he upset me because he touched me or he hugged me. No, see, this is in this ridiculous arena of how is this being believed? And how is this getting to the courts? And how is this giving any credence when we have horrific cases of documented sexual and physical abuse that are getting swept under the carpet because of the incompetence of these stupid little lawyers out there? And then them saying, well, nothing can be done. It's just, it is what it is. That's covered up. That's collateral damage. And some little whining, little pretentious, obviously greedy bitch or bitches, because that's what's in these organizations. Those are anybody decent is ousted. That's another thing that this smells with the Cuomo case. And ask any prosecutor, any investigator, private detective, anybody who does this as a, professionally and has a freaking brain in their head, they'll be like, no, this, sure, if you want me to investigate, I'll investigate it because you're going to pay me. But I'm going to have to make something up here because there's nothing here. And so they made something up, because that is making something up. That's ridiculous. Any freaking woman, when I went and filed a complaint against my husband, it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, but I knew nobody would listen to me, and his family, my family, our entourages don't want to get involved, don't want to get involved, don't want to get involved, want to get involved. Well, I'm going to end up dead because nobody wants to get involved. And que sera was his mother, as well as my mother and my family's response. So of course I had no other option. I mean, even when I tell my grandma, my mother-in-law, I'm like, do you realize if he kills me, he's going to go to jail for the rest of his life? And what's going to happen to my children? Que sera, sera. Of course, she would have been real happy. Me out of the way, and she gets my children. Oh my God. It's no secret the reasons that my ex-husband has the problems, the psychological problems that he does. Okay, his father was part of it, but it was mainly his mother. Just like in my family and my brother. My brother's no different from my ex-husband. That's why he sided with him all of these years. I mean, see, this whole thing, this is what I've been demonstrating, this whole thing about the East and West. I'm like, wait a second. The American families are no different than your Afghan families. The women and children are property of the husbands and their family. And literally, if they want to kill them, then they can kill them. It's their property. They can do whatever they want. So this whole thing about women being liberated in the West, that's bullshit. It's the same situation. And in fact, the feminists have degraded the rights of women and children to that end, to have that situation there. And the lawyers and the courts are laughing all the way to the bank. Everybody else, everybody cashing in. So we'll get to little Alice and her words of wisdom. For the women's rights org, the feminists, why is a raven like a writing desk? Oh, I did do this, wasn't it? One is penned. I forget. Oh, will I find it? I don't want to look through here. Well, I won't waste people's time. I'll look at it afterwards. Okay, so landlord-tenant courts. Off with their heads. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Off with their heads. All of those little game players. All of them. File clerks, law students, lawyers, judges. I was going through, super PSTD, because I had everything about the stress I went through when I went through the courts in Spain. So, I mean, I was trembling the entire time that I was even in the courthouse, and it took 8 months. I mean, this time I don't have all of the stress. So, and I've already gone through the system. So it won't be so traumatic, but it's still going to be having a traumatic, having to go in there and defend myself against, I know, a judge who doesn't give a shit about anybody's rights. All they care about is ka-ching, 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 and empowering the landlords. I've demonstrated this. My last whole bunch of sinvergüenzas. And if they're not criminals themselves, then they're covering up for other criminals. Everybody knows what's going on, just nobody will say anything, because then they will be attacked like Cuomo was. Name of the game. So, but the problem is in the process, they become accessory to the criminal activity of their colleagues. And when the whole thing comes down and we get to the day of reckoning, you're going to have to pay the price. So for Foxcroft and the prep schools, something comes at me like a jack in the box. And up I goes like a skyrocket. Yeah. Entry into and a diploma from these schools, these exclusive schools that are promoting, that are creating the leaders and the great intellects of our time, and shoot them up like a skyrocket into the cashing in cesspool that is the motor behind global warming, with all their shopping and shopping and shopping. Like a skyrocket. But what goes up always must come down. I know you're trying to shoot yourself off into space. So you got no worries. Not gonna work. So for me, today I'm a queen bee. Challenge all the emperors who are wearing no clothes, and I get Tweedledum said Tweedledee had spoiled his nice new rattle. Yes, everybody spoiled my little rattles, and I'm not a happy camper. And this happy little camper doesn't go away when you ignore her. Ooh, no. See, this is also my family. You should know. I mean, yeah, even my mom, well, also. Why? She's like, oh, well, you know, she always told me as a child, you never fail at anything you do. So I guess, she was like, ha, ha, ha. Well, see, if I can destroy her, then that makes me the strongest person in the world. Pretty sick way of living and thinking. And unfortunately, my siblings and just about, I mean, all of everybody I know in the United States lives like that, and a lot of people that I knew in Europe and even in Colombia. It's just rampant amongst the 10%ers and 1%ers. Oh, I don't know many 0-1%ers. Well, maybe some when we get up there, but I don't know. So this is my golfing career. I'll do this short. This is a short story because I have, I've already gone an hour and a half. So I haven't played golf many times in my life, but the first time I ever played golf was at Pebble Beach. And people are like, whoa, and that's where you're gonna play for the first time. I guess it's a pretty impressive place to play. But I'd been there on a trip with my parents. Some of these trips that my parents, like to California, we didn't go as a family. Sometimes, it might be for just a couple days or so, and we would rotate, and one of us would go with my parents, because obviously with 4 kids, it's a lot more time consuming in logistics. So I went with, that was just my mom on that trip. She had gone to visit this friend of hers who lived in, she had lived in Tucson. My mom was good friends with her ex-husband. And we went to visit her and stay with them. And they were members of the Pebble Beach Country Club. So we went there, and I rode there, but my mom had arranged for me to have a golf class. And so I had a golf class, and at the end of the class, the instructor, he said to my mom, he said, oh, she's very talented, she should keep it up, and she should learn how to play golf. And or maybe he didn't say it to my mom, maybe he only said it to me, because I told my mom. And she said, oh, that's just because he wants to sell you he wants to sell, golf classes. Even then I was kind of like, well, we live in Tucson, so I don't know how I would sell golf classes this way. But anyway, I mean, my thing was always riding. And I was like, well, golf, that's when you get old and can't do anything else. And retire, that you go out and learn to play golf. So that was the only time I had played golf until we were in Bogota at Guaymaral. That was the country club where we were, which came with, that was part of the benefit package for, and that was the top Spanish people at the bank. And membership to these country clubs for these guys, it's not a totally, how shall I say, frivolous expense for the companies, because it does put you in contact, like golf and, with all of the local ruling elite. But we need a little bit less of a society where only, exclusive golf or country clubs for the rich and famous and nothing for everybody else. Or throw them pennies and think that they're going to be happy. So, as I say, it's all about balance. And you don't want this, and this is not Karl Marx communism, this is Russian and Chinese implemented communism. You don't want, you know, this population of everybody living in box houses and wearing gray, or the other extreme of in the United States, well, everybody wants to become rich and famous. And if you can't make it and become rich and famous, tough shit for you. And it's only the rich and powerful who have any rights or even human beings. Neither is working. So since we were at, you know, in Bogota at the country club, there was, sorry, all of the other, you know, Spaniards played golf. And my ex, I guess he learned. But they played golf. I took some lessons. I played, because they used to have a whole long day of a golf tournament and then a dinner afterwards. And when we arrived, I mean, my kids were too little, and I was like, no, I can't be all day. I'll come for the you know, the dinner without the kids. They stayed. That's why we had a live-in maid, and you know, they would stay, and that was okay. But I think it was the last year I said, okay, yeah, they're old enough. And so I'll go and participate in the tournament. Everybody was like, wow. Cause I'm pretty, you know, I mean, I guess most people are like, gosh, you've never played. When it's the long shots, I actually really like that. I just have to tell, okay, give me a little lesson before we start. And it always reminds me, I had this aerobics teacher that used to, for tightening your rear end, you do these squats. And she said, just imagine yourself on a public toilet and you don't want to sit down on it, but you gotta lower yourself. I said, the position for golf is a little bit like that. It's just higher up. So, okay, I got my butt up. Anyway, I go through that when I play. I can get those long shots, but I lose it when I get to the green and the putting. Mini golf was never my forte. So, yeah, I, you know, it was one of these things that I realized my mom, you know, any kind of she was threatened by any talent I might have. You know, anybody being more in the limelight or more in the spotlight than she was. And I mean, my goodness, well, a hell of a lot of parents out there would have been like, oh gosh, this is a gold mine, and, you know, force their kids to become professionals. But you know, my mom, no. He just wants to use using golf classes. But I don't regret it. I mean, my passion and my forte is riding in the sports, and like, sure, I mean, if you want to go out and play golf, and when I'm old, real old, and I can't do aerobics anymore, I don't know, maybe I'll go out and play golf with some people. But no, I have a lot of other sports that I would prefer. But at least I mean, I have to say, I do like hitting that thing really hard. Ooh. I mean, of course, this is, yeah, I would have to practice to, because I don't get it every time, of course. But when I hit it right, ooh, I understand how people can enjoy playing. So second card, second card in the second group is, again, the UN, World Bank, IMF. As I say, I don't want to beat dead horses. Human rights NGOs, international development community, international courts. See, it's again just a protection racket. And they just move chairs around on the Titanic while covering up and being accessories to the same type of bullshit that's going on at national levels, instead of setting the example and providing the oversight. It's all one big joke, and trillions and trillions of dollars being spent. Con job. Biggest con job, as big as the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church during the Inquisition. I mean, the Roman Catholic Church was started 5 centuries after they had killed Jesus Christ, the Romans. So, and that was Constantine, if my memory serves me, and was to try and save a dying Rome with this newfangled religion with all of these wonderful morals and messages. See, the Roman Catholic Church is why we are seeing the same problem of covering up for pedophilia and abuses of power and everything in the Catholic Church and all the religious institutions, all of them across the board, covering up, as we are seeing in the secular communities, whether it be the legal community or any of the other institutions. And it's an age-old problem, and just covering it up is not going to solve it. It will just assure that the cancer grows and grows and grows. Oh, it's been raining, excuse me, all day long, and my sinuses. I can always say this is one of the things in Arizona. I always, particularly in August in this city, it's horrible. Okay, so my last little card is for Jim Reed, who is my, how shall we say it? Idiot who lives here, and I'll be polite. So he's constantly screaming at me. He just loves the bug. You can you can go in and look at Kilbourne House. Somebody's looking at. I don't know who's looking at that, but maybe to amuse themselves. But he's constantly screaming at me to go out and get a job, because when he starts bugging me, I tell him he's full of shit. And I don't play into his games and get angry. Instead, I just laugh at him and say, you're full of bullshit. Now that makes him angry. See, what he wants is to make me angry. So what I do is I laugh at him. You're not going to make me angry, because I know that's your objective. And if I do that, then you get your little adrenaline high and you're happy. And that was the objective of bugging me in the first place. So I'm not going to go there. I just laugh at you and tell you what an idiot you are. So then he changes the subject and screams at me and tells me to stop being such a parasite to pay rent and to go out and look for a job. But no, I'm too stupid and I have no talents and I don't know how to do anything and I'm a parasite on society and I'm useless. And that's why I can't find a job. Of course, the evidence, and this is why it's important for me to have a court that says, no, it wasn't because she's useless, you idiots. It's because she was discriminated against by people like you, like white male supremacists like you, who are parasites on society, who are useless, who have done nothing with their lives except be a cocaine and heroin addict and bully and scream at and prance around like a drama queen your entire life. I mean, the man's in his late 70s. His room? Oh, God. I'd laugh at that if this was the college students. Really, because I had a friend in college, Philip Goldentire. Anybody remember Philip Goldentire's room at Mitchell Hall? You walk by and you go, and you do laugh. The poor maid who had to go empty his trash and clean his, because we did have a sink in the rooms. I wasn't laughing. Well, she did. She would walk by, I would watch her. She would walk by and she would look into his room. She would shake her head and go, I ain't going in there. Oh, believe me. We used to laugh when she'd come by and we would just laugh at her, with her. And oh God. I explained to her, I think one time, I said, yeah, when you go into his room, that's because we rented a TV. $15 a month was too much for any of us. So there were 3 of us. They were in it, but the living room was my room. We had singles. The living room was my room. No way was it going to be in Philip's room. But he used to, because we had a desk and a chair in these rooms, and he used to just sweep the clothes off of his chair onto the floor and say, have a seat. So of course, yeah, we had the TV, the 3 of us. It was like, no, we'll set up the living room in my room. I had it set up in the living room. And he was always like, the hostess with the mostest, the hostess with the most. Oh Lord. I remember particularly when MASH, it was the last MASH show that they were doing in the final, and we had a huge MASH party in my room, and his living room, wall to wall people. Oh Lord, the Foxcroft girls, because my sister was 1 year younger than I am, and my brother told me all sorts of Woodbury students used to use my name as their chaperones, or who they were coming to visit for the weekend. I'm like, I didn't even know. But the Foxcroft girls would come and be wall to wall bodies sleeping on in my room. I couldn't even get out my door in the morning because the bathroom, I'd have to wake somebody up and say, I need to get out to go to the bathroom. It's good. You see, this going wild is not good. But teenagers and into the young 20s, yeah, you should be partying. You should be having some fun, not just studying and not just partying. Again, it's a balance. It's a balance. So, yeah, the man, and this is the bigger loser the person is, the more bullying and you know, attacks I get from them. Precisely, David, the landlord, the owner of the house, and his daughter, Suzanne. If they hadn't been looking to destroy me because they you know, they have these personal beefs and agendas. I mean, I know what David's agenda is. I mean, this is, we see elderly abuse all of the time in, you know, nursing homes or facilities for the elder. And it's precisely, I mean, this is okay, this is not a nursing home, but he has kept it always with these elderly people who really have some serious, you know, drug problems, psychological problems, because that way he gets this bullying. He can bully everybody. And I mean, Jim, of course, is his ally. I'm glad poor Richard moved out. I mean, my God, poor Richard. Yeah, the only decent person in here. But of course, he had 3 other allies of bullies. I mean, Artis shifts between being the victim and the perpetrator. She's both. And this is also where the dynamics comes in, and this how shall I say, dysfunctional, like addiction, if you will, because she'll bitch and scream and get drunk and dope herself up on all sorts of pills. I mean, one time she walks into my room 3 times during the nighttime. I'm asleep. Well, obviously I'm not asleep, but I'm like, what are you doing in here? Oh, I can't find my room. I mean, this is not a high rise. There's rooms on here, this floor, and rooms upstairs. It's got 6 bedrooms. I mean, you know, so out of it. And so, you know, she oscillates between that. So she'll play the victim, but then she has no problem screaming and yelling at me or anything, you know, when she gets, particularly when she gets drunk and on our pillow, she'll go on these rampages and, you know, burn down the house. Everybody should be dead, and I hate everybody, and I'm gonna burn it down with everybody in it. I mean, I don't think that they're real threats. I mean, I know how to gauge this stuff. But still, excuse me, you think you have the right to act like that? And to make those threats, even if they're, you know, they might be empty, but you are threatening people, and you should be held to account. And the landlord, who is purposely creating this situation, because he was here, so that he can dominate over everybody, because of course he is the landlord. And this is also, I challenged him, so he's going to show me, and he's going to get me, and I'm fair game. I mean, he knows nobody's going to protect me, nobody's going to help me, particularly not the lawyers. He's a lawyer himself, so he knows what's going on. And In fact, that's another reason I'm sure he wants to destroy me, because if I did clean up the system, he'd be facing an investigation. Now, he has a lawsuit, I'm sure I've already said this, for sexual harassment, or I have a lawsuit against him for sexual harassment and a whole bunch of other things. But he's both of them, Jim and David. And as I said in another video, ladies, you know what I'm talking about when these men like sit there staring at you, really creepy, and you know exactly what's going on in their minds. Exactly. And it just makes your skin crawl. That's how these guys look at me. So, I have to live with that on a continual basis because a bunch of little whining bitches can play games, ladder grappling games, and quite frankly, one of the few leaders that's out there, oust him out of the game because they, the feminists, want all of the power and glory for themselves. I mean, who's crazy here? Who's crazy? I ask you. I don't think it's me. Einstein said, sometimes I ask myself, is it high? What is it? Am I hazy? Are they hazy? Are they crazy? Or am I hazy or are they crazy? No, they're crazy. And they want to rule the world with their craziness. These are no different than any serial killer or rapist in the damage that they're doing. I mean, see, they're enabling and empowering men like Jim Reed and David Siddimer. And I mean, this is a perfect case study of the dysfunctional dynamics, anthropological, stuff amongst the primitives. I mean, I go into this with my blog for Ingrid about it breaks the bones and spirit, domestic violence. It breaks the bones and spirit and is so designed. And the Berkeley Village Project by Laura Nader. Laura, you never had to go to Mexico and some village out in the middle of nowhere to figure that one out. All you had to do was look in your own community. This is one of the problems with the anthropologists. One of the most influential books, I would say, on my ideas towards violence and poverty and, from policy stuff rather than just my personal experience, was Colin Turnbull, The Lonely African. I read that when I was 16. It was in this third world class. It wasn't politically incorrect to say third world back then. But the United States is quickly becoming the third world. Maybe that's why nobody likes the word anymore. So it's and Colin Turnbull is not considered a real anthropologist because he didn't have a PhD. However, it was I guess basically the message that I got from that book was that abject poverty there's a huge coalition between the level of violence in a society and actually what's necessary for survival and the level of poverty of your population. And it is huge. That's why it is important that poverty be eradicated rather than just transferred from one region of the world to another. The World Bank, since Wolfson, has been dedicated to eliminating poverty. Well, yes, poverty in third world countries, but so that we can get poverty in a third world in the United States. Well, World Bank, sorry, you know, income inequality is increasing here, as is poverty, because in part because you guys are not doing your jobs. You're in bed with the American government that is exploiting its citizenry. So for me, I got Paul Manafort, an ace of hearts. Well, I'm not going to read through this because I've read it. You know, I'm trying to cut these down a little bit more because I know they're long. It's just there's lots and lots and lots of bullshit to cover. So Paul Manafort, guilty of everybody. We can just pull up a card. Guilty. Okay, let's just, I don't know if I think I put them at the bottom. Okay, for file number 1, we've got King of Spades. If you do such a thing again, I'll have you buttered. As for my golfing career, when I'm not supposed to play golf, I'm supposed to go ride horses. I got no problem. Okay. For the IMF, World Bank, International Development Community, those guys. The oysters, said the carpenter. You've had a pleasant run. Yes, you guys, you had a real pleasant little run. What is about 70 years now? Time to pay the piper. Oh, yeah. Okay, and for Jim and company, the cuckoo's nest here. Courtesy while you're thinking to say, courtesy while you're thinking what to say. It saves time. I love it. Oh, not too funny. Some courtesy, you people. It would be much appreciated. Manners and etiquette, you know, just being polite to other people and acknowledging their presence and their existence goes a long way. I mean, believe me, these thank you cards and all of the protocol around formal entertaining is a little too much sometimes. However, the other extreme, where we are now, is much, much worse. Much worse. For me, I get all mimsies where the Beauregos and the mom's wraths outgrade. I'm gonna have to memorize what these are, but basically gobbledygook. So that's it for this evening, and I hope you will have a nice evening, and see you tomorrow.